Here's where there's some difference in opinion. So like there's some people who say in the rotation that you turn and drop your right knee. Like everything's like a downward thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't taught that way. So of course, like we're not coming up off the ground. At the moment the ball or the discus, leaves our hand, we want both feet to still be on the ground.
Yeah.
But when I throw discus and even shot put, I am thinking turn my right foot, extend my knee. I'm thinking right side up because even though my body's not going to come off the ground, I'm pushing against the ground. So then my hips are going to do the opposite. I'm going to rise. But it's that right foot is turning and pushing. My hip is going up, except my left leg is being blocked into the ground. So it's almost like, your left heel is on the ground, your knee is straightened, and your right hip is like going up under you. So like for me, and this is how I understand it and how I think about it. And I think a lot of people maybe argue about technique. We're all really trying to do the same thing. Like, but it's how we think about it or whatever is what's different. But I'm always thinking up. I just know that I'm not going to come off the ground. It's up, 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 up. But that up finishes, like I finish that upward movement while my feet are on the ground and that implement is just leaving my hand. And for me, that makes sense to me because, and again, it could be because of my previous technical stuff, but like if I just think about turn my foot or whatever, then I get this weak hip and I collapse in the middle rather than a strong posture. That would be how I understand it.
Okay.
The thing would be is you want to make this as simple as possible. And if we're going to rotate, there's two things that you have to do. So anything we do technically has to do one of these two things. Either focuses on your feet turning on the ground or pushing the implement. And so the pushing the implement is the last thing you do. It's the right foot turning. It's the hip going ahead of the implement, that tension between your shoulders and hips and go. So like, we could talk all day about specifics, but what it always comes back to, are you doing those two things? And are you doing drills, or are you thinking to improve, the turning on the ground or improving the pushing? And so I always make it simple and just be like, that's all you got to do. And because I literally threw really freaking far, only thinking about those two things. Yeah. And so I get a lot of people like, oh, but this, and this. I'm like, dude, why are you worried about that? I threw 65 meters, only worried about two things, So of course I go from the school of simple and practical and efficient. So that's kind of my approach to learning this stuff. But,
so did you train with Gerd Cantor's coach?
Yes. Yeah. For 2 years.
So that, what's his name?
Vestine Hafsteinsen.
Oh, I can't pronounce that. But so did he throw, or is he just very? Yeah,
he threw. So he's from Iceland. He competed in 4 Olympics for Iceland. He holds all the discus records in Iceland. His PR is 67 meters, like 222.
Yeah.
And then he threw, like, when he was a kid, like the 1K really, really far. I don't know how far, but yeah.
I think I've seen him in video. Like, does he have like blonde hair, kind of?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I think I know who. Gosh, is he one of the best discus coaches in the entire world?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I would say there's probably a handful, and he's definitely one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that separates him, and again, my technical stuff is completely influenced because of what he taught me. And for 2 reasons. One, just because he said it. And number 2 is because it worked for me. Yeah. And number 3 is because it's worked for everybody I coach. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But he has a very left side approach to technique, that your left side and working on your left side and what your left side does makes everything else happen better. So it's not that the right side doesn't exist, but some people focus a ton on swinging the right leg out and doing all this stuff with your right leg when your right leg does do stuff. But if you focus on the left leg and get that right and running straight through the circle, all the other stuff kind of takes care of itself. And so that's the influence that is very left leg based technique, which I don't know. I only know a very few people who talk about that in the United States.
You know, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never once heard that before.
Yeah. So I'm in the mission to change the world, the discus technique in the world, or at least in America.
And then because if you watch, like there isn't really a right or wrong. Like you can, like there are so many.
Yeah.
So first of all, like, you know, you watch like a Diamond League discus competition and not a single one of the throwers have the exact same technique.
Right.
So, I mean, it's personalized, but they all do the basic things right. I mean, there are things that you have to have in a throw for it to be far.
Yeah.
But like necessarily not like the way you get to those positions is what's going to be different in some throws. And anyways, all I was thinking is that, like, I mean, if you just watch the right leg, like people even swing their right leg so different.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in an elite thrower, they're all going to have their left leg is still going to be, you know, like it's just kind of your right leg's just kind of there, and it's just going to follow.
Here's a good example. So I used to watch Gerd Kanner videos when I was in college, and I was always trying to do what he did. And so I was kicking my right leg out and doing all this stuff like I was taught and what it looks like he's doing. Then I get to work with his coach. He's not thinking about that. It's just a byproduct of the other stuff he's doing. And it's just like, oh, okay. Like I was off completely. Yeah. So you got to put the wood in the fire before you get heat. You know, like you got to do the basic stuff first.